Hello there everyone, and welcome to episode 10 of my team career mode, where unfortunately last week at Canada we did have an unfortunate DNF. A couple of updates, of course. Looking at the constructors, we're still aiming for 8th, and Oscar Piastri 11 days until his contract expires, and I don't think I can really justify re-signing him. Maybe we'll get him back at a later date. Looking at the forecast though, the race is looking very, very intriguing. We seem to be getting a few races this year with pretty variable conditions throwing everything out the window. Anyway, we move into qualifying 1 and Silverstone. A fun track, fast-paced, sweeping corners. Okay for our car. I think there's definitely worse tracks. Definitely better. But we'll see how we go. P17 heading on to this lap, trying to find any improvements we can to climb a couple of positions so we can escape the drop zone. At the moment though, only slightly ahead on the Delta. Basically just matching the pace at the moment. We'll see though if we can make the improvements necessary to be able to find this lap time back. Heading through Cops, the fast right-hander, slight lift. We didn't have too much downforce, but it's enough to get us through unscathed. Now into Maggots, still in 8th gear, down into 7th now for Beckett's, and 6th, just to get the turn in we need. We go a little bit wide though, just keeping the right side of the car on the track, but we've already lost about 2/10. We get a really bad run now down the hanger straight into Stowe. And I don't think we are going to improve here, unfortunately. Just that second sector really not quite hooked up enough. We ride the curve as well, unfortunately, there. Through the club section and onto the Hamilton straight. We'll see what position it is. We might have been able to just skate through, but unfortunately, it's P17 for the race.
We return once again then to the home of British motorsport and the birthplace of the Formula One World Championship. It's race day here at Silverstone, and it's time for the British Grand Prix. The 3.6-mile-long Silverstone circuit is one of the longest of the season, with 18 corners in the current layout. With average lap speeds reaching around 145 miles per hour, it's also one of the quickest tracks of the year. Watch out for cars taking the right-handers of Abbey and of Cops flat out. Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks like for today's race. A fantastic effort from Charles Leclerc yesterday, and it's put him on pole. And a very happy Carlos Sainz will start second. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Hamilton, Perez, Lando Norris and Magnussen, Mick Schumacher, Gasly, Fernando Alonso and Yuki Tsunoda, Ricciardo, Joe, George Russell and Ocon, Stroll, Albon, Mir and Nicholas Latifi, Bottas, Vettel, Oscar Piastri and Max Verstappen completes the grid. Which of these talented drivers will come out on top today?
Here we are then on
here we go. I know what you can do. Don't let me down.
Prix P17 to kick things off, but perhaps with the changeable conditions we can find some ground with a good strategy and perhaps a strong start as well. Like most of the time though, it does look like a points finish will be very unlikely. Nonetheless though, not much to lose, so we'll give it everything we've got, starting on the mediums. And we'll probably be trying to run those until the rain hits, or perhaps we'll go into hards and play it a little bit safer. Time obviously will tell as we light up the rears, lining up on the grid. And again, it'll be a perfect stop in our box. We wait for the lights. 5 red lights, getting held for quite a while here, but eventually we are unleashed And it's a good initial launch. We short shift all the way up into 5th. Now activating overtake, going around the outside there with Stroll and Russell. We just hang it in the bounds of the track, making wheel-to-wheel contact with Ricciardo, getting a warning somehow against Russell, but we don't take any damage. And now through the loop, trying to find as many positions as we possibly can. And we are up into P9. So that has been an incredible start to this Grand Prix. And down the Hangar Straight, we're going to use more overtake to see if perhaps we can make a jump here on the 2 Haas cars, Magnussen and Schumacher, side by side. Heading in towards Luffield. That's not going to be the most ideal line. We send it down the inside of Schumacher. We make that one stick. And on the lead up to Cops now, we'll be seeing if we can hang it with Magnussen. This has been an incredible start. Schumacher, though, fires it back down the inside. We respect it. We give him the room, and Alonso actually performing an overtake in the midst of that as well. But we get through unscathed. Heavy fuel load now, so we have to be ultra careful through Maggots and Beckett's. But we make it stick. And now it's just about surviving. How long can we hold on to this ground? How long can we hold on to this position? Because it's going to be very tough. The cars around us are going to really, really speed up as the race goes on. Unfortunately for Sebastian Vettel, he's out on the first lap of the Grand Prix. Aston Martin having a pretty bad season so far. We move forward though onto the start of the second lap, and it seems like we're actually hanging with Magnussen on lap 5 now, and the gap has not extended outside of a second, so we keep getting DRS and we're just hanging in. Alonso as well, also attached to the back of us, half a second behind, but yet to overtake. So maybe we have a bit more race pace here than I otherwise anticipated. As I say that though, we do go a little bit wide there on Cox, which is going to compromise our run now through Maggots and then into Beckett's. But it probably won't be enough, I don't think, for Alonso to be a threat. But the AI, of course, very, very strong in a straight line, so it is something we have to be very mindful of. When you look at our battery as well, only about 10% remaining. We can't use that excessively, otherwise we will be very, very vulnerable. Heading now in towards the club section. Quite an awkward slow speed part of the track. And onto the Hamilton straight. Alonso looks down the inside and he shows the nose. Very, very cheeky. Very brave to do that through Abbey, but nonetheless, we do survive and we don't make contact critically. On to lap 12 now. And we are actually going to pit, so the medium's not lasting terribly long here. And certainly not long enough to go all the way until conditions supposedly transfer over to the wet. Nonetheless, Bottas close behind. We're still in P8 though. Presumably we will get bumped down a little bit as a result of this pit stop. Such a long, such a slow pit lane here at Silverstone. And there we go, confirmation that we are jumping onto the hard tyre compound as we edge towards the halfway point of this 50% race. A 2.7 second stop, not too bad, but unfortunately we do actually get jumped by Bottas, so a little bit disappointing. We'll see if we can hang with him, but on exit we go a little bit wide there onto the grass, losing traction uphill. Cold tyres, really, really tough. And that will probably mean we can't stay with Bottas for DRS as we are sliding all over the track. The hards certainly like real life, I guess, where they take quite a bit to activate. At least for us, it seems to be a different story for the AI, but it is what it is. We wriggle the wheel down the Wellington Straight to perhaps get a little bit more heat into this set. A 4-second gap behind to Verstappen, at least for now, as cars will pit and we'll find some positions back, and we're actually into P9. So some okay points, a potential here, but we know there's some really pacey cars behind. But we move on to lap 19 now, and as you can hopefully see, some sprinkles in the sky. The team did not call us in, but with the pit lane being so long and so slow, I am banking on the fact that by the time I leave the pits, the conditions will be slightly damper and I can try to get these intermediates up to temperature. Another good stop, 2.7 seconds. We move forward into lap 20, and the intermediate's feeling quite good indeed. Now we are in P13, but we're out of sequence. As you can see in the top left, Guan Yu Zhou, Stroll, etc. still on the hards. And towards the end of this lap, I think they're going to be seriously struggling. So we're going to push as hard as we possibly can to try and get the jump here. And as you can see, through Maggots and Beckett's, we actually have decent pace for the conditions. I'm assuming we're going to use as much overtake as we can now. Down the hanger straight. That's exactly what we do. And as you can see, a huge bunch of cars in the pit lane. And we are pushing like crazy in the hope that we'll be able to jump them, hold position, and perhaps score some points in this Grand Prix, which would be a big relief. DRS has been disabled, so that's confirmation that the conditions are now declared wet, and the intermediates will definitely now be the right tire to be on. As we enter the first sector, lap 21, Verstappen gets the jump, but we send it down the inside. That's us back into P9. Can we hold out though? 5-6 laps. Verstappen very close behind in a much faster Red Bull. It's going to be a tough challenge, but we don't really have much to lose. Verstappen has championship aspirations. Red Bull have struggled this season and are probably fighting still for second place in the constructors. So Verstappen can't afford to make any big errors here, but for us, we don't have quite as much to lose. So we'll be aggressive here, try and hold this position for as long as we possibly can. And so far the defense has actually been quite strong, but we don't have heaps of overtake remaining. So as we go through Maggots and Beckett's and onto the hanger straight here on lap 21, we will probably be very vulnerable. And Verstappen hones in, shows the nose, only a 10th behind. He may have just disrupted his momentum there though by going for that maneuver, but on the exit, we just don't have the grip required. Verstappen will zip past. We might have an opportunity to go back down the inside here, but that's not going to be very easy in wet conditions, and Verstappen on the exit of Stowe able to extend that lead. And I think now we need to concede and hope that we can hold on to P10 and get a point. At lap 25, Ocon has closed what was a pretty large gap very significantly around the outside. Though on the first attempt we hold that, we go off the track, but we were pushed a little bit by him, so we'll continue on. And on the exit of Woodcote leading up to Copse, we will hold position 10 for now, but this is going to be a fierce battle for a single point. But we are very hungry for points at the moment. Position 8 on the constructors, that is our goal this year, and we're actually a significant way behind achieving that at the moment. The AlphaTauri, a lot of pace and a lot of points already. As Ocon actually goes wide there through Maggots and Beckett's, he may have been able to catch it in the bottom left. In our mirrors, a small mistake there from Ocon extends the gap back out to 1.2 seconds. And that should mean we'll be able to hold on to P10 with only a lap and a couple corners to go. It's all about just being clean, consistent, and not making any mistakes here, because these conditions are treacherous. A little bit too much acceleration here or there, or forgetting to short shift, or just losing any sort of concentration will be costly. Ocon's already brought back half a second. It's now back down to a 3/10 gap. So he has a lot of pace, and we're going to have to defend vigorously, aggressively, and not give him any opportunities as we exit the loop through the left-hand kink. Back onto the Wellington straight, he gets a very strong run. We squeeze him as far as we possibly can down the inside. We still give him room, we give him respect, we hold it around the outside. Much better defense there compared to the previous lap. Ocon looks for something around the outside, might try and go for the switchback, but we hold a tight line. We don't allow him to show the nose on our right-hand side. That gives us the run now, heading in to Copse, as Lewis Hamilton will win his home Grand Prix, so I'm sure the fans will be very excited to celebrate that. But we've got our own fight in our hands here. 1.4, that's what's on the line. Through Maggots and Beckett's we go, not the best of runs, forced to go down to 5th gear just to get a little bit more turn in leading onto that back straight, but we've been able to hold the position, at least for now, heading in to the final couple of corners. Ocon's dropped off as Guan Yu Zhou's actually been able to overtake him. We cross the line, and it will be position 10. We'll take any points we can get, and that was a really fun battle.
Then a fantastic British Grand Prix, and what a performance it was from our race winners today. Anthony Davidson, how do you think they were able to set themselves apart today?
Well, they clearly have a car that comes alive in the kind of conditions we were dealing with today. It's a very balanced package in the wet, and what that means is that the drivers had confidence to attack. Having that confidence gets you on the power earlier, it lets you brake later, and can put you a long way up the road.
So after a magnificent race, we can now see the drivers making their way to the podium. Once again, it's the Silver Arrows who take the top spot, a well-earned victory for Mercedes. So then, it's time to see how this result affects the Drivers' Championship. Charles Leclerc, currently leading the championship standings, extends his lead even further with this result. Well, after an incredible day of racing, who was your driver of the day, Ant?
Often my go-to would be a driver who's managed to pull off an especially impressive feat during the race. However, in this instance, I was more impressed by Max Verstappen's solid, clean driving throughout the event.
It's time to check out the constructors' standings. It was a tough race for our championship leaders, who lose ground at the top of the table. Meanwhile, good work from Aston Martin this weekend, who pushed themselves further up the order. Well, what an end to another fantastic weekend of racing. Thanks to everyone who joined us, and we'll see you for the next one.